Hello, welcome to today's Q&A live stream. Uh, I'm hosting this one as Mod Oasis, and we've got Mod Flippy and Mod Arcane. How's it going, guys? How you doing?
That was so unnatural. Yeah, we're good. I'm good. I'm happy, smiling.
Yeah, I'm good.
What about
I'm
you,
pretty
Mod?
cold. I got a blanket. Trying to
Oh,
keep
very
cozy.
cozy, very cozy. Um, it says in the script I should ask what you guys have been working on. So, what have you guys been working on?
Um, Wilderness changes and lurking a bit on the league's progress, pitching in, annoying you guys with opinions and stuff.
Oh yeah, you have that's good.
I've been working on Next for the past couple of weeks, or a week and a half, 2 weeks. I don't even know. Next recently, ish.
How's it been going? Because it's been a really quick turnaround for Next. Like the progress behind the scenes has been, like, it was like nothing one week, and then the next week it's all being imported in and looking fantastic.
Yeah, I think Mod Ed and Mod Lenny spent some free time basically trying to backport it and figure out how we would actually implement it into old school because our code base is slightly different from how it used to be in 2011. So they spent a lot of their free time doing that as kind of an ideation project, and then it started to become more and more real really quickly. And then the past week or so has been figuring out how to balance it, thinking about drop tables, obviously designing rewards and how do we make Nexus rewards really work in old school. So it was in a very different time. They had overloads, you had pack yaks, you had curses, they had chaotics. I think we actually have better weapons in general, but the overloads and pack yaks are pretty big. They have super prayer potions and stuff as well that we just don't have. Very different time. So it's been interesting. But it has come pretty quickly into a fully fledged boss. We got animations today as well. So it actually isn't just a T-Bo's chicken running around the arena. It's an actual boss that does things.
Nice, awesome. I've been working on leagues as well. My past week has been doing a leagues tutorial. Like we said on the summer summit, this league is quite different in terms of fragments and no more relics, and then you have to unlock your content. So making sure the tutorial is top notch when you guys get into the game. So yeah, that's me. This week's Q&A is mainly themed around Shattered Relic League, answering your burning questions about Next as well. We've had a lot of questions and we're really excited to get into as many as you can. So let's do some announcements and show off some fan-made content. So if you do ! Group Iron Man in chat, which is set to release next week, which is incredible because I'm really excited to try it and jump in with some mates and some other JMods. But yeah, it's finally coming out next week. So ! Group Iron Man and ! Leagues Free, because Leagues is returning, obviously. Shattered Relics, Leagues Free Shattered Relics, which is going to be really fun. We're all super excited to see what content you guys come up with. What theory crafting you guys do once you have access to the fragments and set effects and everything like that. It's going to be crazy. So yeah, cool. We have some fan-made content as well. If we want to go into that, we have the first one up, which is called Misclick by user Spooky Boots, with 3 O's. This is sick.
It's great.
Nice. I don't understand what's happening in it. It looks very pretty, but I have no idea what's going on.
You click I think this is what happens when you kill something. This is the explosion of stuff. Oh, this is when the player dies.
To me, yeah, exactly. It's the player dying, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, right, they're
You know.
misclicking the crawler of Vorkath, and then they die, and this is all their loot and guts going everywhere. Makes more sense now.
Yeah.
I thought they were like killing a scorpion, and then for some reason all these items just exploded out. But it doesn't make any sense, but it looks cool.
That was my first thought as well, like one of the Guardians or something.
Yeah.
You know?
That looks awesome. We have the high-level alchemy icon by Bonza. This looks sick. That looks awesome on like. I'll put it up there. That looked cool. My new nightlight. Next we have Tyrael and Spira by Stakacious. I love the kind of realistic, well, it is realistic and dark kind of fantasy interpretation, which is pretty sick.
It's like if you put those NPCs in like Diablo or something. That's what you would get.
Yeah, super cool. We've got Maxed by Addicted to RS. Whoa, that's pretty cool. I'm trying to get a gauge of how tall it is. If that's a shoe, I thought it was like a shelf, like the size of a room, but it's like a little.
Oh, I thought it was much smaller.
Maybe the shoe's just giant, actually. Yeah, like
It's a big shoe.
What Druid just said in my ear. And then we've got Temporis by @almosttheball. This looks awesome. It has so much like weight to it. It feels like when it slaps you with water, it's already going to hurt.
Temporos doesn't have joints. We're reverting again.
Oh, no, not again.
Cool. I forgot to mention shout out to Sani and Modlight in the chat, taking questions and deleting anyone who's been naughty. Cool. Let's get into some league questions, and hope as well as next questions down the line. So let's start off with Captain Alpha Walrus. The League's free blog has been very vague on how you actually get relic fragments. When it says you can obtain them from skilling, bosses, clue scrolls, etc., does that mean there are certain tasks that can unlock them, or are they going to be RNG drops?
Well, I guess I can. I just realized now I probably have the wrong microphone activated. I'll take a look at that in a second. But either way, I think you can talk about the second part of this question. But generally, when it comes to fragments, they are RNG based most of the time. They're based on your skilling drops, and they also scale with the XP from whatever activity you're doing. So they are a bit locked behind RNG, but we are like still doing whatever we can to sort of mitigate RNG playing too big of a role in obtaining them. And they are also sort of themed around the content you're doing, so you can't sit and like I don't know, like you can't fletch broad arrows and get all the fragments in the game. So it will depend a little bit on what you're doing. And then maybe you can go into like the details of anything apart from skilling.
So for this, with fragments, completing certain tasks won't guarantee you a fragment drop. So like if you do a elite task, you're not going to get a fragment. But with skilling, like Blippi said, it kind of scales based on your experience. It's not going to be like a linear straight line where you get really rubbish chances at the bottom at the start, and then your chance near the end of the league is astronomical because you're getting so much more experience. We're going to try to do it on a curve, so it it has a nice average to it, so how long it should take you to get a fragment. And when it comes to combat, we're going to do it. We're a little bit more specific. So combat fragments are in like tiers. You can get the more basic ones from doing anything and killing any monster. But fragments, so say you go to kill Jads or you do the Inferno, you'll have a chance at a much better fragment. So the good fragments are locked behind higher tier. The good combat fragments are locked behind like higher tier PVM. So it really pushes you to try stuff, do these harder bosses to get the better fragments later on in the league. Cool. So Randomly Broken 2 says, can you increase the duration of the league? 6 weeks seems too short, and compared to previous leagues, it will not be available during the holidays. So you worked on the previous 2 leagues, Mod Flippy, and for me, 6 weeks feels like the perfect amount of time. You have time to kind of get invested, but it doesn't draw out too long. And yeah, do you agree?
I think there's like I'm going to be honest. I don't think there is a perfect time for a league at all. It's like depending on how you look at it. Like if you're playing a league very competitively, 8 weeks can seem like a super long timeline. Where like the 2 weeks or even 4 weeks, sometimes you're essentially just sitting, doing your daily grind to keep your dragon trophy, or not really explore or like experiencing anything new, or having as much fun as the first week around. At the same time, I also understand people who are asking us to keep leagues up for several months, or there's even like some people asking us to keep leagues up for like until the next league launches. But I think the casual and competitive play sort of clashes in that way, and I think because we have a competitive aspect of it, I think 6 weeks is probably better than 8 weeks. I'm curious to see how it feels myself after doing it 6 weeks. But there's always people asking us to do like 2 or 3 months, and then there are some people being like, well, 1 month is enough. So I don't think there is really a perfect time, myself at least. But I'm curious to see how it is, and I'd be up for experimenting in the future. You could always do like 6 weeks non-competitive, and then the ranks are cut at a certain deadline, and then it can go on for like 2 and 4 weeks for whatever people want to, if they just want to play around without having the pressure of getting dragon trophy. There's those sort of options as well, but yeah, I think 6 weeks will probably be good. And also Christmas plays a big role in the deadline here. I don't think a lot of people are super keen on sort of running from the Christmas dinner because you want to keep on your keep up your rank.
Yeah. Awesome. Great answer. Hoops RS. What's your favorite relic, and why is it last recall? So if you don't mind, I'll answer this one. With this league, we don't have relics per se. We have fragments, and then fragments have set effects, and you can compare set effects to the power of a relic, running around in a circle, comparing them all. Last recall was cool, and I think might as well confirm it this time. Last recall will appear in this league, like it was in Dead Man, and players loved it last week. So it'd be a bit. I feel like it'd be a bit mean to just say, no, never mind, you're not doing last week. It'd be like if we said you don't have infinite run in leagues going forward, because that's harsh. Like everyone's used to leagues and having infinite run, so it'd be awful to just be like, never mind, it's too good, you can't have it anymore. Leagues is meant to be about fun, right? But I will also say we are introducing new set effects, which are essentially relics, and some of the set effects we have are really cool. And I'm really excited to see what combinations players come up with, because the important thing to remember is Trailblazer and Twisted League, you made your choice and you were stuck with it, right? If you went through and you were like, well, I don't really like what I've gone with, you either restart or you make a new account, you start the league again, and then you make different decisions. This league, you can mix and match, you can swap out, you can find the best combination, you can find a truly broken combination. Well, hopefully there's not too many of those, but that's a really fun part of the league. So giving you some like more tools to play with essentially, and just do some crazy stuff in the league is going to be incredibly fun to watch.
I sent out a tweet pretty early on asking whether people would like to see recall or last recall again, and like whether it should be like nerfed or not. And I think it just works so well with this concept because it gets a natural nerf in the sense that you have to sacrifice other set effects to use last recall. It's no longer I have all of this strength from other relics, and on top of that I'm just going to teleport in and out of the boss room. now you have to sort of choose between high damage or high sustain or whatever really, and last recall. So I'm hoping we'll see some more creative uses of last recall where you don't need any other effects, but where the sort of mobility is going to be super important.
Yeah, definitely. Little check-in on Mod Arcane. You doing all right over there? You staying warm?
Yeah, I'm struggling.
All right, we'll get to some next questions soon. I promise you.
It's cool. I'm
it's just
just
we've not had. Okay, cool. Just keep yourself entertained for now. So let's jump to. So this one probably goes back to the original design of the league from Adrian. Why does leagues have to have a competitive game mode? Have to be a competitive game mode? A ton of people play for fun and rewards. The Dragon Cup thing shouldn't be incentivized as it's already unhealthy. What do you think towards that, Flippy?
I mean, I read that and I was like, what stops you from playing it casually? I don't understand like the sort of mindset that if there is a Dragon Trophy in there, I have to get it. Like if you want to play it competitively, then do that. And if you want to chill, then chill.
Yeah, it's like high scores in the main game, right? They're not for everyone, but for the people that do want to go for those kind of things, it's there for you, right?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, this one's from Injured Man RS. Can the Void Knight Mace also receive an ornament with the other Shattered Relic Void pieces? It's currently red, and the Void Knights being Guthix followers, it makes sense at least to have the option of a color that isn't red like Zamorak. Yeah, I think this is one I can take to the art team and just kind of get their thoughts on it. We might have to poll it because we polled the original Void. So yeah, I'll take it as a thing to discuss with the team. Cool. Jerry Raids, will you be able to interchange relics similar to Deadman mode? Would be great for switching up activities. I've seen this kind of question asked around a lot, just how will fragments work, so it'd probably be worth like clearing it up. So in Deadman, you had an inventory item that you activated and you attuned and you unattuned from your player. In leagues, the only thing you'll get something called like a fragment shard, or you just get a fragment, which is an object which your character will break open and basically like absorb its power. We have a cool animation for it. Once you've like broken a fragment and absorbed its power, it's no longer an inventory item. It goes into an interface to help you keep track of the ones you've gotten. And then on that interface, when you're standing in a bank or in the starting area for the leagues, you can equip, unequip, swap them out, and do whatever you want to do. The reason we limited it to banks is so it didn't become some kind of meta to be in the middle of the fight, run off, swap all your fragments over, and then run back in, because that would be really rough gameplay, really. And we wanted to avoid doing that kind of thing. If I'm not wrong, in the original design, Flippy.
I think that's fair. Absolutely.
Cool. So, Solo Mission. Is the pacing of this league considered to be faster, slower, or the same as Trailblazer? How do you feel about this one, Flippy?
I think it's largely going to be the same. We stole a lot of the numbers and thresholds from Trailblazer League. And obviously, this is also something for you theory crackers out there. Lots of the tasks this time around are based on the Trailblazer and Twisted tasks, right? Because it's like we have this large catalog of tasks this time around, and we've had to fill in some of the blanks with seeing the snakes in chat, with the new content that's been released. But a lot of the tasks are just from previous leagues. So you'll probably see a very similar pace in terms of task completion and also like in terms of unlocking slots for the fragment and stuff. So yeah, I'd say it's very similar, and you can probably already sort of plan for what to do because you already have that information.
Great. So this is from Wonkism. How hard has it been to add a system like relics to the game, and what unforeseen consequences have you come across? Maybe it's worth talking to the original implementation of relics in Twisted League, because it's slightly different now with how fragments are done. But it's largely the same. Of once you have it activated, it changes something. But how did you face that originally with Twisted League?
Wait, sorry. I completely spaced out. I'm trying to fix something on the side here.
What was the challenge like for implementing relics in Twisted League?
Oh, right. Well, actually, it was Mod Lenny that originally made that system. So I don't want to speak for him in terms of how difficult it was, but for us developers afterwards, it's been super easy and super flexible to work with. So massive props to him. I think it was Mod Lenny, so massive props to him for making that system. I do remember it taking quite a while, though. It was a pretty chunky portion of our backlog back then. So
cool, yeah, and there was some new core systems that needed to be made with this league. Being able to turn off and on, essentially being able to turn off and on a relic, needed a little bit more tweaking and work. But it has been pretty straightforward. Like once you're into it and you're just looking into different bits of code that this fragment will affect, it's quite straightforward. Cool. All right, a couple more questions about leagues, and then we can wake Mod Arcane from his slumber for what next. So, Bad at Naming, please help. When leagues were originally introduced, it was mentioned that not every league world necessarily required players to be Iron Men. What other ideas has the team considered? Would it be possible for a league to one day feature group Iron Men? Do you want to take this one, Flo, quickly?
Yeah, sure. I think it's possible to do group Iron Man. I think you'd have to really think through the design because it's going to come with some challenges. Considering all the sort of rewards and leagues are individually, it's based on your individual progression, then it gets tricky in like how you allow that sort of teamwork to reward each player. But I think it's possible with group Iron Man. It gets much harder when you take it like all the way and say that no one is an Iron Man. Everyone's just essentially doing main accounts. All thing becomes a huge problem where you essentially have unlimited chances to just boost your position on the high scores and the amount of league rewards you're bringing into the game. And yeah, there's these kind of problems that come with it. And obviously we see in Deadman a lot of like people getting traded items and stuff. So all of that will become a problem in leagues as well. So there's of course like challenges with that we need to fix. Now in Deadman it sort of has to be that way because you still need the PvP in there and transferring gear between players when someone dies. But in leagues we don't, fortunately. So we can still we can put an Iron Man symbol on the player, and that makes our lives like 10 times easier. But I personally would love to see a group Iron Man league in the future. I think that would be super fun.
Yeah, definitely. It would be quite interesting to see a design for a league where players could trade. Maybe not on the GE, but I know there was talks to do like some retro leagues where you do content from like 2006 and you can't do 2007 plus content, and then seeing how it would affect the economy where you just couldn't use the GE, and for 6 weeks you see everyone standing in Barak and Falados shouting to sell their goods. Cool. All right, last league question, and then we'll move on to some next questions. Cog Monocle, this one is directly for you, Flippy. What is the goblin relic? And can you all give us a cryptic hint at the start location?
There is no Goblin Relic. There is no Goblin League. So I wrote in the League's Discord that I killed a Goblin 2 days ago during a playtest, and I got a fragment. Actually I was hiding some information. I think I got 3 fragments, all from goblins, when trying to get a chef's hat during that playtest. And I didn't want to say that because it was like misleading information, as if like you'll get lots of fragments from low-level mobs. But I was just incredibly spooned, so don't read too much into it.
Yeah, getting free fragments from goblins is pretty rare.
Yeah,
you did.
I mean, you all thought I was cheating, so.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We have a couple chat questions. Let's go with the T8 ore. How many relics and fragments will there be? So I don't think we want to give a specific number, but I think we can go with the general ballpark of like 50 plus fragments. Considering the League is all about being able to customize and mix and match fragments, we wanted a decent number for players to try different combinations with. So yeah, we have a pretty strong number of fragments, I feel, that will allow you to mix and match. And then let's say, so how will relic rates based on XP drop size? What? I think they're asking, how will XP rates interact with things like making wines? Obviously, if you do have some more experience, you'd have a better chance of getting a fragment. This would also apply to things like quests, where you get a huge dump of experience in one go, especially with multipliers. It will eventually cap off. We've made it so you will never have a guaranteed chance to get a fragment. Completing like Dragon Slayer 2, for example, will give you a pretty strong chance of getting a fragment, but it's never guaranteed. And I think that applies to everywhere in the game. Cool. All right. You still awake, Arcane? Are you warm enough? Let's get into some next questions.
Yeah, I'm alright.
Now I can go to sleep.
Your turn.
Your turn to that. Okay. Really Chewy. That's his name. Back when Nex was one of the first. Oh, sorry. Back then, Nex was one of the first bosses with multiple mechanics. But nowadays, it might be considered tame. Will the boss fight be completely new, exactly the same, or a mix of both? People will try to solo old school Nex. OG Nex has some steep anti-solo mechanics. How do you feel about that sort of thing in general? Any fun stories, discoveries that arose from digging around in the old code? So I guess let's take them one at a time, right? Will the boss fight be completely new, exactly the same, or a mix of both?
It's going to have the same feel. It's still going to be Nex. Mechanics are generally going to be the same in terms of like she will summon Reavers, she will have like a Blood Siphon attack, things like that, right? Those aren't going to change because that's what makes Nex Nex. In terms of specific values, specific implementations, deeper interactions, they will be different in a lot of scenarios. So people will try and solo Nex, but OG Nex had some steep anti-solo mechanics. Yes and no. I think it's completely fine for people to try and solo Nex. I do not expect solo Nex to be efficient. She just does a lot of damage, and there are some mechanics that don't really work in solo. And we don't have Pakiaks, and we don't have overloads, and the boss isn't going to be nerfed to the point where it's just going to be trivial, right? I think people will solo it, but I think it'd be more of like a challenge-based thing. Unless we get some really big like methods created or like new items are released to the point where it trivializes some mechanics. I don't expect people to be soloing it for gear, to be honest. how do you feel about that sort of thing in general? I don't like things being prevented from being soloable for like mechanical reasons. Like, I didn't really like how a lot of mechanics at TOB basically just read as like, yeah, this mechanic doesn't work in solo at all, and it just kill you. Like, the only way to do solo top is to like tick it repeatedly, right? That's not great. I think it's fine if things aren't soloable reasonably by difficulty, rather than just sheer mechanic just being like no. And the last part is any fun stories or discoveries that arose from digging around in the old code. I wouldn't say stories really, and I didn't do it from the original, but I have been looking at the original code quite a lot. There are some mechanics that are just bizarre. Like for example, her range attack in the shadow phase, even if you take like 1 damage, so like all the prayers only do like 25% reduction in the original mechs, as opposed to what we usually do, which is like 40 or 60 or even 100% damage reduction. They only do like 25% damage reduction. But if you were praying, you would reduce, say, like a hit of 50 to like a hit of 40, whatever, like 25% less. But then you would just take 20 flat prayer. Like, you would just lose 20 prayer immediately. If you took a 1, you would also take 20 prayer. If you took a 0, like assuming it passed accuracy still, and you were praying, you would lose 20 prayer. Like, that's just like a really weird mechanic where I'm like, I don't like that. So things like small things like that where I'm like, okay, we can probably make this a bit more interactable. Like, the prayer could scale off the damage, right? If you took a 3, then maybe the prayer reduced is very, very low. If you took a 50, then the prayer reduce is fairly high. So there's actually some sorts of incentive to bring different gear and make sure you're actually praying. Like, if she rolled a 1, like, you might as well not have prayed, theoretically. It's bizarre mechanic, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of small things like that, but yeah, I don't think there's any mechanic where I'm just like, wow, what the hell? Not particularly.
Cool. Wow, this is straight from the boss high scores. With next coming soon, can we make an effort to lock it behind some requirements? I think I've seen this come up a couple of times on Reddit and Twitter. Fasani's Nightmare is one of the best gold per hour in game and lacks a real requirement. High-level content should be locked behind somewhat higher-level requirements to farm that content.
So Fasani's is locked behind 1 Nightmare kill, which is locked behind access to Mauritania, right? There's pretty much nothing else that it's really locked behind. It's like almost the definition of accessible content in terms of requirements. Next is going to be locked behind at least 1 KC of all of the God Wars bosses. So that does mean there are some stat requirements like 70 agility, 70 range, 70 strength, and 70 hit points. Obviously the combats are fairly insignificant, but 70 agility is like an okay requirement. It's not completely trivial, right? So the fact that you need to have those stats, kill all the bosses, then get access to it, and then there's the whole like KC and the key mechanic that we are going to be changing somewhat, but they're still going to exist to some capacity. So it's definitely got higher requirements than Fasani's. Whether it's high enough to feel like it makes a significant impact, that's a different story, really. At the end of the day, these people that are gold farming or creating bots, they can get requirements really easy. Like, unless we have, like, even Song of the Elves, which is debatably our highest requirement quest in the game, doesn't really stop gold farmers from doing Zolkano. Like, so what requirements can we really add, like, reasonably? It's generally is make content more profitable if you're better at it or do better or have a higher investment, right? So one part of that is making sure big important gear upgrades exist, so you can't just kill Fasani's with like full black d'hide and get like really good GP per hour. Like, you need some sort of investment into like Inquisitors or a really good weapon or something like that. But then that hurts the accessibility of the content. Like, low people that only have like a 20 mil bank, they're not really going to be able to do the boss. So it has like a downside. Other requirements can be like making skill like a really big factor. So, but theoretically, there's nothing stopping your gold farmer from getting good, and bots can technically do a lot of stuff. The more complicated you make a boss, the harder it is to make a bot, and the higher requirements the gold farmer is going to have to get good GP per hour. But again, it hurts the accessibility of the content, so it is hard to get a good balance. It's going to be better than Fasani's regardless, but it's not as simple as just add requirements onto content, unfortunately. If people do have really good ideas of ways to add restrictions onto content in some way that doesn't really hurt the accessibility of the content for actual players, I'm all ears, but it's quite awkward.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% spot on with that. It's tricky, but yeah, like you said, be harder than Pisani's to get into. So one from Aristas. Will Next have different mechanics as opposed to RS3? You might have answered this a little bit earlier, but I guess it's direct.
So it's going to be more similar to the 2011 release, right? Before EOC. So don't try and compare it to like the current live RS3 Next, because I believe that that's been reworked quite a few times. It's fundamentally a fairly different fight outside of the Next compared to what it used to be. So it's going to have different compared to what is live right now in RS3, but as opposed to 2011, it's going to be fairly similar. There's going to be a lot of small changes here and there, but fundamentally the mechanics should exist how they did, and how you interact with them should be relatively similar.
Awesome. So I think we have something to show this next question by Godric Light. Do you have any details you could share on the next model? Completely new, unique, or pulled directly from earlier iterations? Thanks, a relatively new player who quit RuneScape before the EOC, and they came back only a few years ago, so they're not too sure what to expect. And we have a GIF of the Next on screen. If you want to talk to this, it looks awesome.
Yeah, so this is very work in progress. It's not finished. This was effectively the original animations from 2011, but they've had to be like converted over into our format because the 2011 format is different than what we actually support. So this does need a pass from our artists to go through, but this is technically the original animation and model ported back and implemented into what we have now. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I'm not too familiar, but I imagine will Pisani be a little bit bigger? They look like character size compared to like Grardor and the other God Wars dungeon bosses.
Yeah, I mean, Nex is a fairly small model. She's definitely bigger than a player, but she's nowhere near as big as like Nightmare. She's probably maybe a bit taller than Commander Ziliana, but obviously she doesn't have the wings that like reach out, so she feels like thinner, right? What are you laughing at? What did I say?
I'm just reading chat. Big mistake.
Oh no.
The wiki can use that. I saw they recently put out a tweet of the biggest and the smallest characters in the game, which was actually pretty interesting to look at because I didn't know. So they can add that to the scale. Forbidden Skinny. Will the loot mechanics for Next work like Nightmare?
Sort of. We've taken inspiration from Nightmare because we like some aspects of the loot distribution system. We've altered them slightly and added some additional things that we feel like is an improvement. So it's going to be fundamentally different from the Nightmare, but it's going to be more similar to Nightmare than it is to like regular God Wars. So like Iron Men are going to be able to play with like regular players, but then there's hopefully not going to be any sort of boostable way of like affecting Iron Man or anything like that. So everyone should be theoretically on the same playing field in that regard. And then we've done some other stuff to make it kind of interesting.
Nice. Melodic Implement 43. How different do you plan to make the next rewards? It would be a disservice for her to not drop the armor sets. Without her dropping armors, it would be like Grardor not dropping Vandal's armor or Corp not dropping sigils.
Currently, the plan is to have one armor set and 3 other rewards. I think it's so there's like a total of 6 rewards that we're offering. One being an armor set, or 3 being an armor set. 3 out of the 6 rewards are armor pieces. So she's definitely going to be dropping a set of armor, but we don't feel comfortable dropping 3 effectively best in slot armor sets from one boss that's a group boss. And like the fact that TOB's got 7 rewards and Next could theoretically have 9, like that feels wrong. So we're happy to release like one armor set effectively and then some other rewards. Hopefully they're all desirable to some degree. But yeah, we don't want to just bloat out a reward table just for the sake of nostalgia. We don't think that's worth it. There's no reason why we can't introduce the other armor sets later on either. Lore-wise, it doesn't actually make sense that Nex has like all these armor sets for some reason, so it's fine for us to introduce the other Zarosian-themed content later on down the line. So there's nothing stopping us from releasing one armor set here and then the other two later on at other pieces of content.
Cool, awesome. Still on the topic of rewards. As far as from CT proper, as far as next rewards go, are you leaning more towards attachable upgrades to existing God of War armor that can degrade and cause an unsync, or are you leaning more towards totally unique? So I imagine this is more for the non-armor that next would drop, the extra rewards.
So I think it's about all of it, because like Torva was originally like a degradable armor, but I think he just recharged it with coins, and then there's been like a lot of talks and like, well, if we wanted to introduce, say, Torva, then you should attach Bandos to it, so then Bandos doesn't become like worthless, right? I think there's two parts there. One, I don't think people like degrade mechanics like full on. Like I think degrade is a good system when necessary, but generally from a player perspective, it just feels bad and annoying. Two, I don't think the only way we could introduce Bandos 2 or whatever is by making an attachment. The economy itself is a bouncing point. So if this item is really rare and really expensive, Bandos doesn't all of a sudden become useless. So just because there's a better version of Bandos doesn't mean everyone all of a sudden is going to sell the Bandos, get this new armor set, and they'll never be able to use Bandos again. There's different types of players, right? If you don't have like a 1 build bank and you can't afford Bandos 2, Torva, whatever, then you're not going to buy it. So the demand for Bandos is still there. But that being said, there'll obviously be a shift in demand. Like the demand of Bandos is objectively would just go down, so the price would be affected. But I think that's fine. I think the price of Bandos going down slightly to match demand, it'd be okay. It's just we wouldn't want it to plummet to nothing, and we wouldn't want it to be like there's never any reason to use this item ever. Well, the reason for the item to be used is if you can't afford the higher version, right? The more expensive version. So theoretically, I think we can introduce better armor sets without having it to be an attachment. There's also the problem with attachments that it's kind of like it's almost like a how do you describe it? You can only really do it once. Like I can't imagine us releasing another attachment that goes onto Primordial boots. That just feels dumb to me. So whilst it works in that scenario, if you try and look at future boot reward space, we've kind of got ourselves in a bit of an awkward situation already where I can't really imagine anything above Primordial. And maybe we just sit with Primordial forever, right? Who knows? But it's nice to try and design them in a way where you always have those options. And I've got a lot of ideas on what those options can be. And I'm trying to write up like a massive document at the moment that highlights it all. But yeah, I don't think the solution to every single best of slot upgrade is, make it an attachment. That's only something you can realistically do once. And we don't want to blow that too early.
Cool. Awesome. We'll do a couple more next questions. I think we've got a couple in chat as well. So from Lysiana, given how Nex use ancient curses, might we be seeing a return of deflection curses through prayer scrolls? Also, will players receive the ancient ceremonial robes from Nex's mages?
Might we be seeing a return of curses through prayer scrolls? Not for Nex. We're not going to be introducing them for there. I do see us releasing them at some point in the future, like a separate prayer book. From what content? I don't know. How powerful they are? I don't know. I don't imagine us just releasing Soul Split how it was ever, to be honest. Absolutely obscene. But I could see it coming back to some capacity in some way, more balanced, more realistic, more old school, right? But I don't see why we would just never add them, right? There's no real reason to be like, well, let's never add this content. They're pretty cool at the end of the day.
Cool. And last question we got here.
Oh, sorry, I didn't answer the second part. Ancient ceremonial robes from Nexus mages. You can get them from the monsters in the prison, I believe, as well as a small chance off the bodyguards. Nex has like a Fumer and all the other ones. Can't remember the names.
Neat. Last one. Cobb Any possibilities of a solo encounter option? I'd even be satisfied with reduced loot chances if I can solo.
I think we do plan to offer a way to make a private solo-only instance similar to all of the other God Wars bosses, assuming you've unlocked the appropriate tier of combat achievements, which I think is hard and above. So you'll be able to pay money and obviously have the KC, whatever, to make a private instance. I don't expect it to be very useful, if I'm honest, because I don't think Solo Next is going to be very realistic. But for those that really just want the challenge and don't want to have to hop worlds to find private world, right? I think it has some use for those people, but I think it'd be very niche. But in the future, I imagine, like as we release more content, if we do release curses and whatever, overloads, Pakiaks, doubt. But once we introduce more items in the future, I imagine maybe those private instances will get more and more desirable. And maybe Solo Next could actually become efficient eventually, but I don't think we're there yet.
Cool. All right, I'll do some chat questions. So if you have any more questions about leagues or Next, put them in chat. So Kimchi77, will there be a bank outside Next like back in the day?
We're currently undecided on this. We don't really like how the whole pre-Next prep works back then. But like, you had to get a key, and then you had to charge the key, and then so you could only go into Next so many times before you had to recharge the key, and then you had to get KC. But then once you got KC, you had a bank. So then it didn't really matter, like all like the prep before then, because you just re-gear in there completely, going with a perfect inventory. And then Ancient Ceremonial Robes came out, which skipped the whole KC system. Like, we don't like that, so we're going to be like redesigning that like flow like before Next, and hopefully make it reasonable. Because I don't want it to be where you have to kill 40s monsters every single time, and they all like destroy you, and you got to recharge this key all the time. Like, we don't want it to feel like a massive chore or anything, but it is important that process exists. There is a bit of friction before you get to the boss. That's important for God Wars. That is what makes God Wars quite distinctive. But hopefully it won't feel like a massive slog. So we're undecided on the bank. Maybe there'll be a bank and it'll be like limited use. Maybe there won't be a bank at all. We're still investigating that.
Cool. It might be a bit early to say, but hang on, I can't highlight it. From Noodled, old Next drops are fairly common. How rare do you plan on making Next drops for old school?
They will be more common than Nightmare, but probably rarer than Tom. They'll be within that ballpark, but if you know me, I don't really like giving drop rates ever. I think it makes the game boring.
Yeah. Nice. Will there be a Next pet?
Yeah, you'll be able to get Nex as like actual model as a pet.
Awesome. What's this question? So this one is from X Mad Havoc. Well, that's such a 2007 name with the X's in the front and back. Will you be able to tell where to get certain relics so you can hunt for the ones you want, or is it all randomly generated?
Oh, me. I'm back.
Yeah.
What's up, guys? No, as I mentioned, like pretty early on in the stream, you will be able to know sort of where to expect certain fragments. Some of them are very specific to the content you're doing. Others aren't. Like, for example, I could make a more concrete example to say that maybe let's see, maybe a fishing fragment you would only get from fishing experience drops. So that could include a lot of different pieces of content, while maybe I don't want to reveal something stupid here, but maybe just a clue scroll fragment you can get from clue scrolls or whatever. You get the logic behind that. So yeah, there will definitely be some predictable ways of obtaining certain fragments.
Cool. That's brought something else to mind that I think you answered on Twitter. Just how will because it will affect fragments, but how will content locking work? So like we mentioned before, you only start with 3 skills. And as you can probably imagine, there is thousands of interactions in the game. The newer ones are quite easy to find, and we can categorize them. But a lot of the older random ones and things that haven't touched in ages, fire making, for example, are all very singular. So we can't go into every one of those interactions and say, you haven't unlocked the skill, so you can't do this interaction. Like, you haven't unlocked woodcutting, so you can't drop a tree. It's not going to work like that. If you haven't unlocked woodcutting, it might be unlocked at the start of the league. We're not ready. We don't want to say just yet. That'd be spoiling the fun. You can still chop a tree at level 1. You just won't gain any experience. As like an example. So you can do things you can do at level 1 of all the lock skills, but you just can't gain any experience. So you can't do the higher tier stuff, right? And because you can't gain any experience, you won't be able to get any fragments in those skills. So that's how that whole content restriction system will work for skills. It's all around the experience. Cool. Let's go back to next questions. With the hot release of Group Iron Man next week, can you believe it? Next week on Wednesday, that's crazy. Can Group Iron Man fight? Can Iron Man group the next boss? That's either a question of an individual Iron Man fight next, or can a group Iron Man group fight next? Whichever way you want to take it on.
Like, it is similar to Nightmare in terms of like, it's not going to discredit a kill just because another person did it, but you're not going to get a proportional drop rate depending on your contribution. So similar to like Chambers of Xeric and TOB and Nightmare now, if you're slacking or your gear is bad, you're not going to get a high roll like regardless, right? So it's not going to be boostable. Hopefully, this is the goal. But you'll be able to do it.
Nice. This one's come up a couple of times from Metallic Mage. How would the loot be assigned? Well, if you can say to it, will it be assigned to who did the most damage, gets the unique, or will it change to make it so everyone has a chance?
Everyone will have a chance, but again, that chance will like scale. So if you only did 1% of the chance, you're going to get 1% of the drop rate, technically.
Nice. And how will combat achievements, the Grandmaster tier, will that give any advantages in next?
Yeah, so you're going to need to get KC to do the boss, regardless. And kill my achievements affects getting KC or your Reckoning Cookie drop chance. And there's a teleport that's good for God Wars, so getting at least a hard tier, I'd really recommend before Next is launched. But if you want to be as efficient as possible, you should get Grandmaster done, so then you have as little KC to do as possible, so then you can do Next as much as possible.
Cool.
Yeah, just do Grandmaster.
Okay.
Just do Grandmaster. If you want to be efficient, do a Grandmaster. You've got a couple of months.
It's the classic spend like 60 hours to save 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Let's get it done. So will Next affect Group Iron Man prestige?
I imagine we'll have a system like that, yeah, similar to Nightmare. I think Nightmare is done where you will lose prestige if you complete the kill and you're in it and you got help. Like, there's other people there. So I'm assuming we're going to do the same thing where you'll get a warning when entering. If other people come in, you'll probably get another warning or something like that, and you should probably just leave immediately. I don't think we're allowing you to join mid-kill. I think that like first 20 seconds or something you'll be able to enter, like once the fight started, but after that you just have to sit and wait.
Cool. Spot on. And we'll finish on a league question, just so if you can end us off. Will the free skills for leagues be the same for everyone, or will everyone get given random skills?
Yes, I think they will. It's mainly to avoid bottlenecks early game. The starting area we picked is related to the skills that you start with, and it's just mainly to put everyone on a even playing field at that point with symmetrical gameplay. So then you have some additional choice in the beginning, which I don't think we've talked about yet, but you will have some choice in the start, and then of course during the entire league. But those 3 skills are set in stone. And also, I think if players got to pick skills, we wouldn't see the super dynamic situation where everyone would pick different skills, or it would lead to really interesting factors. In reality, it will be like relics essentially, where people who pick early on will have a disadvantage because they picked some skills, and then as the meta forms, then people will know exactly what skills to pick, and they will just start off with a massive advantage, and we end up in the same situation where everyone starts the same 3 skills anyways. So we sort of just took that control out of the players' hands, and we picked some that we thought would be good and interesting from a gameplay perspective.
Yeah. So we're starting you with Slayer, but you have no access to combat skills, is what we're essentially saying. No, don't take that as gospel. Okay, all right. That's everything. I'll just close off with the announcements. We made it through the stream with me as host, and not someone who's good at it. So exclamation mark Group Iron Man, which launches next week, which is crazy. It's going to be really exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing the streams. I'm going to be clicking through loads of different streams to see what everyone's doing. Set to launch next week. It's been a long time coming, but we're all so excited that it's finally here. Yes, just the script is repeating what I just said. And then exclamation mark Leagues 3, which comes back. Leagues 3 Shattered Relics, November 3rd, which I always feel pretty risky saying, but I'm pretty sure we have announced it after Dead Man, so it's all good. November 3rd. The fragment system is going to be crazy. The unlock system is going to be a really cool twist, and we're all really excited to see what you guys do with it. But yeah, anything else you want to say before we close out, guys?
Round of applause for host.
Oh yeah, that absolutely. Good job, Oasis. Nice one.
Amazing.
Cool. Thanks, guys. And we'll see you in the next Q&A. I don't know how to close this off. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.